So I just now got around to playing around with the new workflow feature, which came out when Opus 4.8 was released. I know I'm kind of slow to the game, but honestly, I watched some YouTubers talk about it and I read the blog post and I wasn't fully convinced what the purpose of this was. I thought it was a way to token max and burn through all your tokens, but I recently decided to use it for 2 non-coding scenarios, and I think the output is actually pretty good. So I want to kind of walk you through the scenarios in where I think a workflow would be good to use in your day-to-day. Because I will say that it does kind of burn through your tokens. If I go and look at my usage, it's at 97% for my 5-hour window. So I have the $100 a month Claude Code plan. I think it's called like the 5X Max. And it basically went through and used all my session after 2 workflows. So first of all, what is a workflow? And then we're going to talk about why you might want to use one. So a workflow is a way to basically prompt Claude Code to set up some type of flow where it can figure out agents to basically run over your code base. It can go explore your code base. It can have agents do different things, and they all kind of orchestrate together without you having to manually specify how the orchestration works. So as an example in this, I need you to use a dynamic workflow to go through my course and analyze for any gaps that might be missing so that a beginner or a junior dev would still find this a very valuable course to learn how to deploy a fully running application to a VPS. Okay. So the key thing I want to kind of talk about is the keyword workflow. Typically it highlights in like rainbow colors. I don't know why it's not doing it on my computer, but I would just say use the key terms dynamic workflow, and that'll kick in to then use the workflow to kind of go through your code base. Now, so if I pressed enter on that command, you can actually go and view the workflows like so, which will give you an outline of the different phases that it plans to go through. So these will go through in order. And then for every phase, you can click enter and go in to see the different agents that are running to do whatever the top level task was, right? So in this case, the first phase is critiquing all my modules. It went through all my 14 modules with Opus 4.8 to gather context and critique it. Like, is this module even worth learning or worth teaching? Would someone want to pay for this? Then we have a synthesize outline, which honestly, I don't know what this one did. You can click enter to go into it. It says you are revising a software architecture course outline for this buyer, college students, junior devs, and self-taught vibe coders who can get code working with AI but don't understand it, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how you even scroll with this. I press down arrow, it doesn't scroll down. So I think they need to work on fixing Claude Code. But anyway, that's the idea. So this phase is trying to analyze the outline in the scope of here's my target audience of who I may want to sell this to. And then I need it to actually tell me if this is even viable. So the third phase is trying to validate demand. So this one's actually pretty cool. It went off and it researched existing products that are kind of in the same niche. So I think it found some other YouTubers and it kind of walked through what they offer and also the pricing of their courses. This other validation phase kind of went on Reddit. I think it also went and looked at Udemy, Design Gurus. Basically, it tried to just do research and try to figure out if I made a product, like what is a good price point I should put it at with my 14 modules, 125 videos, X amount of hours to watch through. And then finally, the workflow came back to me and told me like, yes, people would buy this, but I need to kind of work on a few things. And it gave me suggestions as how I can change the marketing terms, like who my target audience could be, what content inside of this course I should probably include. And I found this pretty useful, right? I just kicked off the workflow, came back, and it kind of gave me some good information. Now, the second workflow I kicked off, I think is a lot more interesting, and I want to kind of walk you through that one. So I have all these modules, but if I'm going to actually make videos, it'd be nice if I had a way to get an overview as an instructor, like what do I need to talk about? What's a good flow I should use for teaching this? So let's go ahead and click on like provision to VPS, SSH keys, users, and sudo. So those are the main topics for this video. And what I asked the workflow to do was go through every MD file for all my videos and then generate a slide deck that I could use to walk through as I'm doing a presentation. We look at the prompt down here. I said use a dynamic workflow to create a slide deck for each video. If a part of the video will use a diagram, embed an iframe pointing to sketchlab.webdifficulty.com so I can easily just start drawing. The slide deck must be in HTML. Find an existing library for it. Add a table of contents page so I can easily navigate between those video slides. So after kicking this one off, we can go ahead and look at the workflows over here. And you'll see that it kicked off 125 agents. Now, granted, these did not all run concurrently. It only ran like 8 at a time. I wonder if there's a way to kind of increase that throughput because it just took a while. It took a while for this to go through every single MD file and then create a slide deck for it. But it eventually got through it all. It burned through my whole 5-hour session, as you saw with the usage before. But we can kind of look at the outputs of that. So now I actually have a slide deck for every single video on my course if I decide to even make this course. I don't know. I don't know if people even want to learn through courses at this point. You can just prompt an LM to teach you. But I do think having an instructor like teach you from his actual experience could be very valuable, especially if the instructor can make it engaging. It's probably more enjoyable than reading the outputs of an LLM for the most part. But anyway, so we have all these slide decks where I can use as a presenter to kind of go through and just get a good understanding of if I'm going to make this video about provisioning a VPS with SSH keys, just to make sure I didn't miss anything, right? There's a lot of stuff that can go into just that alone. And I want to make sure I'm hitting on the main topics for this particular video, okay? And then also there is a way for me to basically go over here. Actually, I'm on the wrong thing. Let me go to the presenter deck. There's a little bit more information on the presenter deck that I can kind of follow. And of course, the users wouldn't see this. I wouldn't do a screen recording of this. This is a deck only for me to kind of use as a reference point. But then also I have a built-in iframe where I can go and create a new board, and then I can start drawing with the tool that I've been kind of working on the side. So like, again, this is my own sketchlab.webdecoding.com, but I've embedded that directly into the slide deck. So as I'm presenting the course, I can quickly just open up a diagram and start drawing for you guys. That's the overall idea. Now, when would you want to use a workflow? I know there's a lot of information. What I decided to do is in one of those workflows, I told it to generate a mermaid graph so I can visualize the workflow. I don't know where that is in the chat, but if we go over here, this is what it ended up building out for me. So this is the overview of the workflow. Basically, phase one, we have all these different critics that go over my modules and try to review them. And then when that's all collected, we go to phase two, where we synthesize the output with one agent, kind of gives us an overview of what it's doing. And then phase three, it validates the demand. So it kicked off two different things, two different agents. One is kind of looking online and trying to get the price points and the audience pain points. Okay, so like what would be some things that audiences actually would want to buy this course for? And then also what are the existing pricing things out there? I already kind of talked about this, but it's kind of cool to visualize this workflow graph because this is a very simple workflow, but I do think you can actually have workflows that are much more complex, and which leads me to my final point of when do you want to use a workflow? I would say you want to use a workflow when you want to fan out and do a bunch of parallel work. As you can see here, it went through and it spun up a Sonnet agent for all this different work. I didn't choose what effort level or model to use. The workflows command figured it out for me. So again, it's able to figure out a really good schematic of like what it needs to do, all the different phases, what agents to call, how to invoke them, etc., how to fan out and come back in so that I can get the work done. And that just takes one extra mental load off of you, the operator, so you don't have to actually like prompt exactly how this workflow should work. You can just let Claude figure it out, and it's going to go and spin off what it thinks it may need. Okay. Now, I will say that once the workflow is created, I do think you can save this. So if you press save, you can save that and kind of use that workflow for future sessions. Now, I haven't actually used this. You can just invoke it, video slide decks. It looks like you can just invoke it like this, video slide decks. Why would you want to use it for this particular instance? You probably wouldn't. You want to use it for an audit. Like, I want you to do a security audit workflow to dive through my whole code base and fix things that you find. And that could probably take a lot of time. Also, it probably burn through all your tokens. But that's something that you could potentially abstract away to a reusable thing that you saved. And I think under the hood, if we do talk about how workflows work, I don't know if it's in here, but I do think in the Claude code, we have a workflows directory. And if we were to cat that file, you'll see that it's basically just a giant JavaScript file that outlines how it should kind of kick off all these agents and, you know, the prompts that it's sending into it. That's how workflows work underneath the hood. I'm not really interested in diving into the details of that. I think just knowing how to use it and when to use it is much more valuable. And again, you probably just want to use it when you have a large task, a lot of parallel work, and you want to kick something off in the background and come back in an hour or two to review it. Now, granted, I probably could have used /goal for some of the same stuff. Like I could have said /goal. I want you to kick off 10 sub agents to go through all of my MD files for my course concurrently and convert them to have slide decks. Okay, so this is something I could have done myself as well. But again, you have to remember to specify the sub agents. I didn't specify to use Sonnet here. I didn't specify to use Haiku. The workflow figures that stuff out for you. So again, it's just one less thing to kind of think about. But I guess use it with caution because it could burn through a lot of your tokens. So make sure you double check what you're prompting before you press enter, before you just lose your whole 5-hour session window. One cool example I read on Reddit was someone was using workflows and basically doing a concurrent task and saying, hey, I need you to implement this 3 different ways, and then use a tournament style to determine which one is the best and then give that back to me. So using that type of creativity, you can kick off different things. You can prompt it to have tournament styles or do A/B testing or ranking. And then finally, the workflow can give you back its best option, which is a pretty interesting idea. So anyway, have a good day. Happy prompting, and leave a comment below if there's a different way that you like to do workflows.